I love how we woo our own intro before we start.
We've got to. Somebody's got. We're hype girling
Are
ourselves.
you hype girly?
Yeah.
Hey, Jeej.
Hey, Chris, I didn't know we had started.
Producer Ace only said, "Let's go."
I read that wrong.
Read the room.
Go time.
Awesome.
Thank
Here
you,
we
producers.
are. We are
Hi.
back again.
Hello.
Oh, Jeej. How have you
Hi.
been?
I've been great. How have you been, Chris?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
I've been a little busy lately, but
Yeah.
I'm managing.
Good.
And so, before I ask you the question,
Good. Yeah.
anything new? Anything you need to share?
It's going to be my answer to the question, so no.
Then let's lead with that question. Of recent memory, what's the most millennial thing that you've done, Jeej?
Okay, so yesterday, y'all,
I'm sorry, I'll keep a straight face.
I got tattooed at a women's collective, and it was by the most amazing person. It was truly an experience, and I felt I was sitting there in the little waiting room, and I was like, this is definitely the most millennial thing that's happened to me all week.
Can you explain the businesses that operate within the women's collective where a
Yes.
tattoo shop, maybe not a parlor, was present?
Yes,
'Kay.
absolutely. So it's very cool. It's in Salt Lake. There's actually 2 locations, and these are all women-owned businesses that they allow in there, which I think is very, very cool. The kind of main one, I was at the secondary one. The main one has a lot of businesses that would be recognizable to you and I. Some jewelry
Got it.
making, some food, some things like that. Also,
Just all small businesses,
all small
right? Okay.
businesses, yeah, owned by women. And then the one I was at was really, really cool. It had living spaces on the 3rd and 4th floor, and then
Ooh.
space for a restaurant on the 1st floor that doesn't look like it's been completed yet. And then on the 2nd floor it had rooms and rooms of rooms. And this beautiful waiting area with snackies and
I feel like you just
drinks.
inceptioned me. You're like rooms of rooms of
I
rooms.
yeah, it was rooms of yeah, there were rooms of rooms. They were just nooks of rooms everywhere. And so I had some time to do a little wander there, and I saw a couple of hair salons. I saw a few tattoo places. I saw what looked like to be an energy healer. There was a psychologist in there too. Just very cool, and the energy was great. It was just clean and beautiful. And very cool to be surrounded by that energy. And the person who did my tattoo was not only talented, but an absolute vibe.
Well, for the handful of people that listen, do you want to give her a free plug see if anyone needs
Absolutely. Her name is Kate Rose Tattoos. If you're local to the Salt Lake area, she is featured on Safe Tattoos Utah, which I feel is a very important thing that I want to mention.
TLDR, what's that for everyone?
In Utah, the tattoo industry is very relaxed as far as regulations. And so you can take a class. There's a couple of people that offer classes on fine line tattoos. You don't have to be certified. You don't have to do anything. And
Is that a function of it bleeding into the beauty industry here in Utah?
Yeah,
a little
it
bit?
is. Okay. Yeah. So you can get not only art that's not great or not done well, but it can be unsafe. They're also really big about safe spaces for people who tattoo.
Yep.
And I've been in some places where I didn't necessarily feel great as a woman getting tattooed, and so I'm very grateful that this organization exists, that they're so vocal and they identify artists where you can go and have a good experience. And so she's on there, Kate Rose Tattoos, an absolute vibe. She does this thing called an intuitive tattoo. That I was
Intuitive tattoo.
Yes.
Intuitive tattoo. I just want to make sure
Intuitive
people heard that.
Tattoo, where you go in and you give her a few words, and you do a meditation with her, and she draws this tattoo kind of based on the vibes. And I am very into it. I was if I know when I'm going to be in Utah again with enough lead time that I can book you, I want to do this. It sounds so dope. That she was very cool, and that was.
What if you just end up with another rainbow cow? What if that is what gets manifested out of that
Honestly,
conversation?
it is kind of the vibe, so wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, but it was very cool, and I had some time. She was very cool. She was drawing while I was there.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of downtime to do things, and I'm reading a book right now that I recommend called Cassandra Speaks, where it talks about how our um, like the literature and the art that we've been like introduced to in our lives is majority by male authors and from a male perspective, and how that kind of informs our feelings about gender roles, and which I know is like topical for today. But they talked about how like even like female superheroes, which is something I've talked to you about. Like I love Wonder Woman because she's strong and she's great, but she doesn't espouse the male values of a superhero, right? She like loves ice cream, she loves babies. She's able to be soft and show that other side of what it means to be human, in a way that I think is really beautiful. So
That would
it
be
was
an
just really
interesting
cool.
juxtaposition of the public views of Wonder Woman over the decades as a character,
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
right? Because I think
Yeah.
Wonder Woman came around maybe the 60s or something. There was
Oh,
a TV show in the 70s.
yeah.
Now there's
I'm
Gal
talking about the
Gadot.
Gal Gadot, the
But
Gal
that's
Gadot
what I'm saying.
version.
The
Yeah.
juxtaposition, that would be quite interesting to see if she was feminist leaning, feminist empowering, the whole, like, the whole generation of all the
Yeah.
eras, to
Yeah.
steal a term. Does Taylor Swift own the concept of eras now? Is that what we all have to concede?
I mean, every time now someone's like, I'm in my something era, I'm like, are you a Swiftie? Can we be friends?
Fair enough. That
Sorry,
That's
that was a very
wonderful.
long answer, but it was a very meaningful experience
No, I
to
think
me.
this is great. I think this is genuinely us. This is what we talk about.
Yeah.
We don't have anyone controlling what we talk about, so we're gonna do and say the things that we think we like, right?
It was just very cool to be in like such a place where it was like the setting that everything was
Mhm.
for the female identifying experience, and
Yeah.
it was just lovely.
Environmentally agnostic of all of that.
Yeah.
Great artist.
Amazing
beautiful stuff.
artist. Oh my goodness, it's gorgeous.
Awesome. I think I worked too much like the last 2 weeks. That's my millennial experience.
That's your millennial experience.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I've just been working quite a bit, and then making sure that we can make the move.
You've
soon.
been an amazing, amazing partner. I do have one quick update from last episode.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Everything's okay. Go.
Awesome. Okay, so
What
our
was our
last episode was on Beanie Babies.
Yes, Beanie Babies. Thank you. I forgot.
And not 1 week later, I was at my parents' house as we're getting ready to move. My mom was like, "Hey, I've got a bunch of boxes of your things. Can you come through and like look through them and decide what you want to keep, what you want to go?"
There has to be an over index of a millennial experience where like your parents, like, maybe you neglected taking stuff out of the house and
Yeah.
they've packaged it all up and moved it once or twice.
Yeah.
Or it just like sits in the corner. It's like, will you come get this? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll get it one of these days. And you never do. And then finally there's this ultimatum of, we don't want your stuff here. It's been 10 years. Can you please get it out of the
Yeah.
house?
And I think to my parents' credit, a lot of it was like the childhood toys I really loved, which are in really good condition
Mhm.
still. And so they had been holding on to them for like either like kids of mine in the future to come play with, or like
Uh-huh.
me to give to my kids. And as it's kind of become, they had their first grandchild. My brother just had a baby, which is so exciting. But as they kind of were like, oh, you might like this might not be your path, like these things got moved to me. And one of them was my Beanie Baby Flip. We talked about in depth last episode. She looks just as gnarly as described. She definitely looks like she has been buried in blood all over. I will feature her on the Instagram if anyone would like
Yeah,
to see
dust off the Instagram. Here we
the
go.
current picture of Flip.
I
the
hope
Beanie
Flip
Baby
only
cat.
has one eye.
Flip has 2 eyes, but they are a little scratched. She has no whiskers left, and her beans look like they fell out at some point and got resewn. I don't have a memory of it because she is she's not very like full anymore.
For the non-cat
beans.
people. Oh, her beans that fill her up. Never mind. I
Yeah.
thought you meant like the hands.
Oh, like her paws.
Like the paws, yeah.
No, like her beanies and
So-
her Beanie Baby.
She's in her like final throes of death era.
Oh,
Just
she
getting
has been
skinny.
for like 20 years. Yeah, yeah. But we love Flip. Flip will be moving with us.
Oh jeez. Well, welcome, Flip.
Okay, sorry, that was my update from last
I
episode.
I love
We found a
updates.
Beanie Baby.
I love updates. We will definitely put that on
Yeah.
there. And not only was the Beanie Baby found, what wasn't divulged is there are pictures of young Jillian with Beanie Babies also in this box.
Oh, it's true.
We're to understand correctly, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
like I had a little camera when I was little, and I made my mom apparently take so many pictures of me with this Beanie Baby, like on my head, in my arms, doing a flip. Like, yeah.
All right, we will give the old Instagram and other socials a good dusting,
We will.
and we'll post something on there for y'all. Okay, I have no updates because I have no Beanie Babies. Today, I did let Jillian know so she could be prepared for the conversation.
Yeah.
But we're talking about just gender roles.
Yeah. Yep.
And how gender roles are becoming softer, but still ultimately prevail
Yeah.
from just the surveying and the science of it all in America currently,
Right.
right? And so I think when I talk about social things that are not, I'm sorry, I'll say this. I think Beanie Babies, we don't have to headline as much because
Yeah.
they're just a toy. But when we talk about things that are within the social parameters of what we are in our
Mhm.
society and culture, please know, I myself, I'll only speak for myself because I won't even speak for Jillian in this one. I am very live and let live as it goes. I'm not here to support or deny anyone the rights to go and think how they will and what makes them happy. And this is just an insight into how the millennial generation views things in their conscious brain, and how sometimes we don't see our more traditional behaviors being exposed in our unconscious brain.
Correct. Yeah. And as far as gender goes, like we are both very affirming that like gender is on a spectrum. It's very fluid. It has nothing to do with the sex you were assigned at birth.
Mhm.
And that's something we very believe. We very believe in trans lives matter a great deal.
Yeah.
That gender fluidity is a very real thing. And we are lucky to coexist in
Yeah.
a world where it's that's beautiful souls are beautiful.
Exactly. So we have no intention to dive into the culture war
No.
that is becoming headlines in our society.
Yeah. No.
This is more of us looking into how millennials view things and how we behave within the spectrums that we're starting to all recognize, embrace, support, become.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So just wanted to get that out there for everyone. We are not here to be divisive. We're here to be collective.
No, but we are firm on that stance that
Mhm.
there's no room for hate in ourselves or in our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, we're gonna paint a little bit of a picture as we get into the topics here. I'm not as documenting as Jillian is in her research. I don't go collect all the facts and bullet point them and document them and make sure that everyone gets credit for them. But I do go read and I do go pick up on themes that provoke like a thought train in my mind.
Yeah.
And so as I was, what prompted this whole thing, because I am 75 when I'm in my car and I listen to NPR exclusively. Like I think exclusively is the word.
My car was on NPR today, and he's like, "Chris must have driven this past week."
There was a headline that I was listening to on my drive that talked about how maybe not necessarily millennials specifically, but the majority of that like nice sweet spot of the millennial range of age in America is still very conforming to gender roles when it comes to a heterosexual relationship and housework duties.
Mm,
So I'm going to
Interesting.
stop there.
okay.
Right? That's going to be towards the tail of what we talk about, but
Okay.
any thoughts on that? Generally? Or do you just want to get there?
I want to get there. I want to hear the
Okay.
lead up to it.
Okay. So that got me thinking. I was like, but we are, as a collective group, as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
have become more accepting.
Yeah.
Have become more open-minded. Have been more comfortable with the exploration of thought.
Mm-hmm.
as it is a circumstance of gender labeling or identification of an individual, is how I'll say that. So in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, I was like, how in the world are we stuck in traditional gender roles when it comes to our like non-work lives?
Interesting.
And so that's what sparked this like conversation in my head,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so when I got looking into just the general news information of it all, the millennial generation is the most open-minded generation around the spectrum that can exist at as it is recognized for gender and identification than any generation, including Gen Z. And so,
Which, when you told me that, this is one of the like few facts you shared with me
yeah.
ahead of that. That very much surprised me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because every single time we look at the math of some concept of a multi generational view,
Mm-hmm.
it is progressively more or less, depending on the topic, of increase as you go generation by generation here in America.
Right, and it's kind of linear in how it's
Yeah.
decreasing, right? Like, or increasing.
Exactly. So it's like it's fractional and it
Yeah.
looks just really nice and solid math.
Yeah.
According to my reading, millennials are 56% as like we don't necessarily need binary gender outcomes.
Yeah.
And Gen Z is 50%. So it's not like they're like drop way off the thing, but
Yeah.
I would have expected them, if millennials are 56%, if it correlates to all other types of behavior in the math that we've looked at,
Yeah.
I would expect them to be in the higher 50%, low 60%.
Okay, hypothesis only.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because Gen Z is still pretty young, like a lot of them still live with their parents, a lot of them are still kind of in their houses and communities of upbringing, and we know that your brain doesn't fully grow until you're 26, which they're like hitting now. They're kind of the
Mhm.
older ones are a little bit over 26 at this
Yeah.
point. And I wonder how that will change as they kind of get a little bit older, or if it will. I don't know. There's a lot of factors that they have that like in their lives that I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not
Just
accounting for it,
surprising,
but
just surprising for me because
yeah,
it was way off of the expected norm when we've
Mhm.
looked at everything, right?
right.
And so millennials are known to be, again, the most open-minded about it all. They less and less adhere to if they do have children, or if they're asked but don't have children, but the ideas of children, they less and less believe that kids have to play with certain toys
Mm-hmm.
or not explore certain ideas when they're like pretending
Yeah.
and things like
Yeah.
that. There are concepts that more girls in America, I'm sorry, more children born to millennials and maybe Gen Zs, more girls than ever are getting like gender agnostic names,
Yeah.
right? Boys are getting somewhat gender agnostic names as well. And so like this whole concept of like a fine line of blue and pink
Mm-hmm.
is becoming whatever the color is now, right? And it's more singularity of it
Yeah.
all. There are concepts of maybe not how do I say this correctly? Of not just assuming masculinity as the direction
Right.
for a male child and assuming femininity
Mm-hmm.
for the direction of a biological female child.
Right.
Sorry, there's a lot of words to make sure that it's all said correctly, but a biological male child, a biological female child. And so like more and
Assigned
more
at birth, yeah.
assigned at birth, thank you. So more and more, it's just been like a little bit more live and let live. I
Yeah.
know that this is a distribution under a curve. There are tails to this. There are still people that want to conform to a little bit more traditional
Mm-hmm.
conservative values of that gender assignment at birth understanding, and vice versa. I mean, completely agnostic to any thoughts or ideas on the other side of the tail, right?
Yeah.
But they're saying more and more underneath the curve, it's spreading spreading out from the mean as a little bit more of what is normal when it comes to the concept and understanding of what to expect from the traditional binary gender outcome, right?
Right.
And so to that point, they're saying, and this is where, forgive me, most of our female listenership, because I think you might disagree with this fact a little bit. They're saying generationally and decade over decade, more and more women are getting into the workforce. More and more women are finding themselves in positions of male dominated leadership in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so more and more women are finding themselves in like places of leadership that were a little bit less expected in the past, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe on the whole, like
Yeah.
I
think
see I
Utah's a little
see
different.
big swings one way or the other with that. I
Right.
think it depends on the company culture and some of
Yeah.
those things. So
No, I'd
yes,
agree.
please don't sacrifice me over the podcast, female listeners. But like that's what the data
If
says,
that's what the
right?
data says, that's like wonderful, and I hope that becomes like trickles down to places that maybe aren't coastal, which is where I imagine some of these things are more prevalent.
Yeah, and the data also says that more and more female identifying people of our society actually aspire at a higher rate to become a CEO
That's awesome.
or a C-level executive of a company than men, and that
Yeah.
men are very accepting of that and actually just at a less and less rate want to be a C-level executive. That's a completely different conversation. Like I had so many like spin-off thoughts on this, and I was like, I can't make this a multi-part series, and I also can't make this a 3-hour podcast. Right? I think there are still challenges. So I'll say this. I still think there are challenges in the binary aspect of gender in the workplace. I
Yeah.
think women are scrapping and fighting in their place to get what they want, and more accurately, if equality is placed there, like what they can achieve.
Right.
But on the whole, 2/3 of anyone polled still believe men have it easier when it comes to workplace acknowledgement, workplace progression, fill in the blank, right?
I'd agree with that.
And so it's just kind of like it's really interesting where it's like here's this wider and wider and wider and wider spectrum. However, certain things won't come along at the same pace, right?
Yeah.
Certain like American outcomes and ideals still don't come at the same pace of this like thought train and progression of the non-binary outcomes of gender identification at birth and how people want to identify, how they feel, all of the things that come along with the spectrum of gender, right? At the same time, because I'll say this way, because we're millennials, because we're racked with debt, because we're overeducated, because we need to make money to pay off our debts, because we have professional aspirations, because we're turning more and more into independent and or dual income partnership outcomes within our society. We've done an episode on this before where we have pets instead of children
Yeah.
more often. People aren't having children, one,
Mm-hmm.
and if they are having children, they're having them later in life. And it's quite interesting. I didn't give this any thought that science is actually providing us this.
It's amazing. I have several friends that have frozen their eggs. To be able, like, some of them don't have a partner, and they're like, I would like to keep this as an option in future. Some are like, I am very into my career, and I would love, like, it is an inconvenient time for me to do this. And it really is a little bit unfortunate that, like, as a woman, your fertility cliff is around 35. And that's kind of the time when you're like really progressing in your career, right? You're past the beginning stages, you're hitting this thing, and kind of have to sit there and make this decision. Do I have kids now and kind of stop everything that I've been working on?
Yep.
Or do I choose not to have kids and continue on this career?
Right.
It's kind of it's a hard spot.
And so they're saying from a period of 2012 to 2020, because I assume 2020 after 2020 or in those few years of 2020 and after, the math might be a little bit off.
Yeah.
IVF, I can't say.
In vitro fertilization.
Thank you, boy. It wasn't going to come out of my mouth. In vitro
got you.
fertilization, more than doubled in revenue as a service because of this, like putting off of the family,
Yeah.
right? Of all of these things outside of gender. This is just becoming an outcome.
Mhm.
So it's gone from like 9 something billion to 21 plus billion
Wow.
dollars of revenue
Wow, wow, wow.
for IVF services
Wow.
in America.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that I know there's a trope that I don't necessarily want to give it honor, but it comes up so often and probably won't surprise anyone that it's like, oh, once you get to a certain age as a woman, the trope is the time is ticking for you to make some biological decision about having children or not, right?
I don't think it's a trope. I think it's a very real, like, fact that a lot of people have to deal with day in, day out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is laden with debt, trying to get out from under debt,
Mhm.
highly educated,
Right.
higher income
Right.
earners, allows someone to afford the choice
Yeah.
of having children at a later date and time in their lives than would biologically be optimal for them, right?
Right. Right. I love that. I love that science has given has widened our ability to have like a fertility window to have healthy babies if that's our choice down the road, and we're not as beholden to like a timeline as maybe past generations have been.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, to that point, it's just kind of interesting how I don't think any generation has a smooth road. I'd love to
Mm-mm.
just put that out there, right? I
Yeah.
think every generation has its own challenges. They just present themselves in the moment, and that's what is front of mind for us, right?
Right.
Um, the rare occasion I talk to my folks about just like how life was for them
Yeah.
and in their like 30s and things like that, and kind of what is somewhat the entry of prime of life
Mm-hmm.
in the times before that. And they're like, yeah, we went through, our friends being drafted in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
We went through hyperinflation of this period of time of this political turmoil. We lived through less EPA guidance, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that have been exposed to carcinogens and
All
things
that
like
lead.
that, right? And so I'm not here to discredit anyone anything, but we
No.
are a function of we are output and function of the inputs that we have to react to in our circumstances is
Yeah.
what it is, right?
Oh, I think that was very profound, Chris.
But yeah, I find it interesting because millennials sometimes still, the clicks are to bash, like the formula to get information on millennials is to bash them more than it
Yeah.
is to like prop them up,
I
right?
remember
And that's why I
when-
struggle.
Yeah.
That's why I struggle finding topics for this
Mhm.
podcast if it isn't my lived experience, because I have to go sit there and rake and sort and wade through the negativity
Yeah.
that is the easier way to write about our generation.
I remember just when we started this podcast, I was a little discouraged by how many articles. Yeah, we're just like, millennials ruined this. How millennials ruined this. And I was like, did we really? Or are things just changing?
Right?
Yeah.
But I think this was long story long. The reason I put all that in front of us is because the American community is changing. Partner, no partner. We're all becoming a lot more financially, well, how do I say this? We're higher income earning on average as a generation. I think we're a little bit more lonely as a generation. Like if I were to
Interesting.
go take a look at that. But for those people who have made a choice to embrace partnership, it's almost like the American cheat code. Dual income household really helps in a lot of those circumstances.
Yeah.
But that like concept of working, that concept of everyone being busy, that concept of people being responsible for many different things, and there's not just this linear, like really fine line in the sand of this person is the breadwinner, this person is a support system, potentially like it was way back when.
Yeah.
I don't want to discredit any circumstances of people in the mid 1900s to like the 1980s or something like that. But I think more predominantly there was a single income earner. If there was a relationship or concept of family, there was someone that was a support system that was potentially not the income earner in certain socioeconomic outcomes there. It's becoming less and less the case,
Yeah.
right? The inflation that we face, the debt that we potentially took on, all of
Right.
those things need cash flow in order to like survive and operate.
Yeah.
But it really affects the home.
Yeah.
And how we operate either singularly or in a partnership or in a family unit, depending on what your home life and your home circumstances are. But they talk about how millennials, and this is where we're going to get into gender roles when it comes to non-professional life, they more and more will come together and figure out the responsibilities of the home, gender agnostic.
That's wonderful.
They more and more are accepting of different combinations of family units,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah.
more and more are just saying, how can we just make a collective that is optimized for us, right? And it's like, here we are. I think we unconsciously came into whatever this collective is that Gigi and I live in. We have producer Ace. That's a very beloved part
Yes.
of our small house here. We have other friends and other family that interlace and come and go. But at the end of the day, Jillian and I don't live what was the Leave It to Beaver, like put up on a pedestal type of like household outcome. And it's really funny for me to like look at all the details of what I've been reading on this. I just talked a lot, and it looks like you have something to say.
I don't have anything to say.
Oh, okay.
It's like, yeah, you wouldn't have it any other way.
But I think what is very interesting is the next data point was we are a function of our upbringing when it comes to our unconscious outputs
Yeah.
of our home life, is what the science is saying. No matter how progressive you are in your conscious mind to recognize all the shapes and colors and sizes of identification outcomes along the gender scale, we often find ourselves unconsciously falling back into more traditional female and male household duties.
Yeah.
What in the world? How can that be?
I
Like I'm
think-
still like stumped by it.
No, I think it's really interesting, and like all I can ever draw on is my own experience, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
very much see that. I grew up in a house where my dad worked and my mom stayed home with us, but there was, and while she did like cooking, cleaning, most days my dad did a lot of cooking too. He'd come home and he'd cook, and on weekends he'd always make breakfast and he'd cook for us. And he like very much when he was able to be at home, he pitched in on childcare and would like do stuff with us on Saturdays to kind of give my mom some room. And so even though like I did have kind of that dad goes to work, mom stays at home, I never felt like cooking was my mom's job, right? Or anything. It was just like she's the one available to do it. So it happened like she does it most of the time, but it's not her job. And in stark contrast, I was in a relationship where the expectation, we both worked, was that I cooked, cleaned, did laundry, all of that on top of maintaining a job. And that was very something that was modeled by that person's home life, right? And so, and was encouraged by like that person. Like the mom was really intent that I cooked and cleaned and everything, right? Because that's what a good wife did, without acknowledging like, hey, you didn't work. You never worked. I don't like, we're both working hours. It's unfair. It makes me feel like less of a true partner if I have to come home and do like extra duties while someone else plays like video games, right? Like how it doesn't feel great. So I definitely see that. Like it's startling how much our like childhood affects our like thoughts throughout life, but it makes sense. It's when your brain is like malleable.
Right? So
yeah.
more women in the professional workforce than decades before, if not ever. it's like you're just a function of this thing that's happened to you years and years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's like deep inside of you, and you have to like consciously be like, I don't do it male or female,
Mm-hmm.
or anything in between. I'm not saying that anyone is assigned to it, but it's like the concept that it's not unconsciously understood, right? The concept that it's, hey, what are the things that you don't enjoy doing in the work household? What are the things you do enjoy doing in the work household? How can we split these things to where we support each other, if not everyone, and not like have the resentment of, I had some unspoken expectation that I don't do this chore or activity around here, rather than seeing the need filling in and or ensuring that other things are done because me myself, like as an example, I'll let everyone know. Laundry. I am very good at starting laundry. I am very good at getting it to all of a point of clean, so there's always clean clothes. I fall apart hard when it comes to organizing, folding, hanging, and putting it all away because I just hate it. I hate it so much.
That's funny.
I just live out of a clean basket before Jillian came around. So clean basket of clothes, be like, oh yeah, I know where everything is. It's in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most professional lifestyle to ever have been lived.
No.
It's just not for me. I just can't stand doing it.
And that's something that I don't find a burden. So that's how our relationship works. Is
Mhm.
like I'm very happy to do laundry. I hardly cook, if ever. Hardly ever cook, and like Chris takes on the huge responsibility of like feeding me 3 times a day, for which I'm very grateful. Yeah.
But they did a survey. I'll have to look and see. Let's see. It looks like a Gallup survey here, and they looked at men and women in a heterosexual household, men and women in division of labor on
Hmm.
certain like common household chores, and so it was men, women, or both was the outcome.
Yeah.
And then they subdivided it between 18 to 34 and 35 to 54. It does everything you would think it would do. There's nothing here that makes you think that we are who we aren't, right? And so the younger identified, for instance, laundry, right?
Yeah.
Again, laundry. Uh, I was single for years. I was in charge of my laundry. I was in charge. No one else was doing it for me, and it was I made it happen. I wasn't the best at it, right? But 1834, like 16% of men surveyed said that they do the laundry. 55% of the women surveyed said they do the laundry. 28% identify as they both
Yeah.
do the laundry, right? And as you get older, you'll see it tick a little bit into the more traditional, like gender roles
Yeah.
and those types of things. But like laundry, meals, washing dishes, cleaning house, like caring for kids, like those major main ones, you'll see as men and women surveyed are a little bit younger. The men in the less traditional like scenarios tick into it a little bit mathematically percentage wise. The women, it's kind of give or take, but the both starts to increase
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
on that kind of stuff. And it's like it's really interesting to where this whole concept of for me in our heterosexual relationship is what I'll talk about. I call you my partner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I love that.
It catches people a little sideways when
Mhm.
I say that, um, because I think if you hear partner with a certain trained ear, you would think it's a non-heterosexual relationship.
Yeah. I think it's important though that like I know some people have like some issues with it. I know some people personally that are like, oh, I hate when people do that.
Mm-hmm.
But like to me, I'm like normalizing that language like makes it a safer place for everyone, right? So the people that aren't for that, like you no longer can pick it out. You no longer like can target someone based on the language that's used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot. I was talking to someone at work the other day, and so Jillian was exclusively labeled my partner before we got married, um,
'Cause
because
that's what we were.
girlfriend, fiance, all of that stuff wasn't truly what she was to me. We got married, and I still leaned into partner, but occasionally I'd be like, I guess she's my wife?
It sounds so weird. I think I've called you my husband like twice.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right?
It's only when I'm like, there's a man backing me up who can take you down. He's big and strong.
He's just chubby in the right places. Um, but like, someone that I worked with felt comfortable enough to tell me, like, yeah, when you talked about your partner in the past, I thought that you were homosexual until like the context of the conversation led in to know that Jillian, my partner, is a female, right? And I was like, I can understand that, and I'm smart enough to see that when I was using that word, but wasn't afraid to use that word because I think partnership is really what makes our relationship work as well as it possibly can.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I wonder if, again, I have no figures on this, I have no science on this, but I wonder if more and more millennials might see themselves as partners than they do as in a heterosexual way, or maybe even non-heterosexual way. When you come
Just in
together
general.
in a
Yeah.
in a relationship, do you see yourself more as an equal weighted partnership that has some ebb and flow,
Yeah.
right?
Always going to happen.
There are certain things that I fall apart on and I just don't do well that Jillian has to lean in, and vice versa, right? But do you have the expectation and do you have the understanding that people are equal in the relationship, and that equality comes with the good and the bad of equality, right? It's
Yeah.
like the garbage needs to get taken out, someone's got to take it out, right?
Yeah.
But like
It's no one's job to take it out.
yeah,
It's,
but that thought train of like partnership, I wonder if that's a little bit stronger in us as millennials, or as our generation as millennials, as they may have unconsciously have taken that from, they're the first, I'm sorry, in mass, they're the first generation to have dual income households
Yeah.
normalized.
yeah. That
And
makes
so
sense.
do they unconsciously learn the concept of partnership as they saw what was presented to them in their household?
Yeah.
If they're in that type of household, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, why do we accept partnership more than gender roles?
Why do
Like,
we accept partnership more than gender roles?
yeah, why do you and
Oh.
I identify partnership more than gender roles?
I think because we view ourselves as equal and we view gender roles as outdated. Like we are very in line with this concept of like things need to happen and we like care about each other and we care about this like household, producer Ace included, like enough to be like if there's a gap we're gonna fill it. If there's something someone just can't do, like all hands on deck, that's fine, we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly right. And this has just been such a profound thought to me. I've been thinking
Yeah.
about this for about 3 weeks now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I heard this a while ago, and I hold on to my topics until it's my turn. I'm very supportive of everyone living the way that they want to live their life, and doing the things that bring them the most and ultimate happiness.
Yeah.
I just find it very interesting that as our society continues to try to progress, and as it crashes up against some of the walls or things that would try to prevent it from progressing, that we can consciously, like with focus and purpose, be progressive in our thoughts of what we support, but unconsciously revert back into behaviors that are not our conscious like actions and outcomes.
Yeah.
And the brain is such a powerful thing. It just amazes me. I definitely went into the wrong like line of work.
Oh, no, that is interesting. And that makes me think like, will people kind of the millennials children generation, I think it's alpha is kind of what they're being labeled.
I saw that today. Like, I didn't know that they were called alpha.
Yeah, because Z and then we start over again. Which is a big circle. I wonder how they will approach this in their adulthood. Like, will they see, like, even though we still have maybe some unconscious bias or some unconscious, like, maybe some conscious thought about, like, who does what, will they be even less likely to, like, lean into that or what? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, like, at the end of the day, the social experiment that is this world of humanity that we live on
Yeah.
is fascinating to me. The antagonists, the protagonists, the influences,
Mm-hmm.
the things that are unforeseen, and how just like as a human race we all react to it. And then you subdivide us up into our geographical regions, our socioeconomic outcomes of all of that, and like we just slowly become what we are in our space versus collectively across humanity,
Yeah.
right? And so where we can see other cultures and other generations don't identify with the American millennial at scale,
Right.
and some of them are even further ahead if you're thinking in progressive thoughts at scale there too. But I think at the end of the day, thank you all for going down this thought train that is my, like, we won't lose sponsors because we don't have any like ramblings here. But I thought this was just so fascinating at how we can be so open-minded and accepting on the whole, right? I can't speak for everyone,
Yeah.
but open-minded and accepting of what freedoms potentially are provided to us by a couple of documents from long ago, but still find ourselves tripping over ourselves
Yeah.
in our conscious progressive thoughts, right?
Yeah, the brain is hard. That wiring is hard to change and unlearn, and especially as like a collective, so hard for us to like steer the collective ship even just a little bit. So honestly, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the relationships that I see my friends in that are really good. The ones that are really good and really healthy, where like childcare is equally divided. Other things are equally divided, like effort is
Mm-hmm.
recognized, everything.
It's a team
Awesome.
it's a team winning.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of Tanner and Sarah. Sarah has been on the podcast before.
Yeah,
She's
friends of the pod.
wonderful. Like how they parent their little girl and kind of the ebbs and flows that both of them take, from
Yeah.
my observation, have been absolutely beautiful.
So
So I love it.
I'll wrap this all up. Everyone, find your happiness.
Yeah.
Find the things that make you happy. Life will do what it does to take you away from it. So find your
Yeah.
happiness. Leave yourself a breadcrumb trail so that you can go back and find it again when life maybe takes you away from it.
Yeah, I love that you say that, Chris. So cute.
All right. Anything else, Jeej?
No, this was a great conversation. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, of course. And thanks everyone for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.